Five Nights at Freddy's, a franchise more confusing than Joe Biden's dementia-infused answers at the recent debate. That's not just because of the batshit crazy lore either. That's its own can of worms more suited for the hardcore fans. But also, its current state. For a series so reliant on death as a concept, it sure does teeter between being relevant or not quite a lot. You know what I mean? One month, it's the talk of everyone and their dog, especially with the movie releasing to such huge success. Well, in the box office anyway. We all know not to trust the critics though, right? Or the audience, I guess. They don't have a flawless track record either. The important thing was that it was more engraved in the public consciousness more than anything at that point, and stayed that way for a few months actually. Weirdly though, it seemed to have been forgotten faster than modern memes. I bet Honk 2 will be dead by the time this video releases. It's to the point where I didn't even realize it died. I bet you may even be in denial as well. The franchise is still hugely popular, especially with the most recent launch, Ruin, you may counter. Well, what if I told you that Ruin is about to not be the newest game? That title goes to FNAF Into the Pit. See? This game flew more under the radar than a spaceship in Freddy in Space 2. It actually seems extremely interesting too. For one, it acts as a spin-off to the main series, not even being developed by Steelwool. Hopefully that means they're taking some extra time cooking. It is instead developed by Mega Cat Studios. They are essentially an indie studio and haven't made any games that I'm familiar with, but I think it's awesome to hand FNAF off to someone smaller, given its roots. With this, in addition to the Fazbear Fanverse, an initiative in which Scott personally funds FNAF fan games, Scott has shown that he hasn't forgotten about the importance of giving a chance to smaller creators who haven't yet blown up like Bomb from Angry Birds, like he was fortunate enough to. Going the spin-off angle is the best approach in my opinion. It prevents stagnation and most importantly allows a new villain. FNAF isn't a children's cartoon, although it's getting dangerously close with the Roblox game. We don't need the same villain in every game. Obviously, some game series can get away with it, such as Bowser with Mario, as Mario games don't have a ton of story aside from the RPGs, which use unique villains anyway. This means you don't really have to worry about exhausting Bowser's character development. He gets boring gameplay-wise, sure. Dude's more obsessed with fireballs than an arsonist, but Nintendo shakes it up once in a while. Particularly in Mario 3D World, where you fight him as both a furry and when he's in a pimped out ride. Still a missed opportunity to not add it to Mario Kart. The main FNAF antagonist, Afton on the other hand, has stuck around as the sole villain with little experimentation. Even in the series' new era, Afton still comes back. The only good thing to result from that is the meme. People may argue that Vanny is the new villain, but I'd rebuttal that she's equivalent to Moff Gideon from The Mandalorian, someone used as a puppet for a larger goal, for a more powerful villain. Gideon Palpatine, Vanny Afton, or excuse me, Glitch Trap. Yeah, nice try guys. Just because you give a character a new name doesn't magically Sailor Moon transform them into a different character. Just look at Saul Goodman, or the Overlord from Ninjago as examples. Saul Goodman / Jimmy McGill / Gene Takovic / Victor / Kevin Costner is a crash course on how to make each name or personality distinct from each other, as each identity feels like their own being while simultaneously contributing to an even greater whole. It's like ketchup and fries. They're both absolutely deadly tasty on their own. That's right, I can chug ketchup like Badlands chug style, but together they're an unstoppable duo. The Overlord is more comparable to Glitch Trap though, his alternate identities merely changing his abilities rather than his character or motivations. Going back to Gideon and Vanny, ironically, both of their goals involved resurrecting characters that should have stayed buried longer than Mr. Beast, and represented both franchises' refusal to advance beyond the original material. Afton's arc has ended. Let him rest in purgatory like Ultimate Custom Night implies. Or just let him stay in his movie star era and have him be the antagonist only in the movies. This would likely lead to more profit as well, as people would go to the theater due to the sheer nostalgia they feel for Afton and their utter desire to see him again. If there's anyone who needs more profit, it's FNAF characters, particularly the security guards. You're paid $120 a week? Bro, that's less than minimum wage. Who's on payroll duty? The pizzeria owners? Thankfully, acting essentially like FNAF's version of the Acolyte, Into the Pit promises to take the franchise in a fresher, Aftonless direction. Although hopefully Into the Pit turns out less controversial, especially after the mixed reviews to the modern series. Concerningly though, it seems like it may have elements more outlandish than even things like virtual worlds, computer viruses, resurrections, and remnant from the corporate era, such as time travel. The game is going to allow you to go into the past and try and save your father and children and solve the mysteries of the game firsthand. Overall, I'm mixed on this. On one hand, I appreciate FNAF the most when it tries to stay somewhat grounded in reality, and time travel is definitely not reality. Probably anyway. Simpsons may have been blessed with the ability, who knows? Time travel is also a new concept to FNAF though, something I've been begging for. It all depends how they implement it and if they focus too much on trying to explain the mechanic. Don't get me wrong, for a series with lore as abundant as FNAF, they shouldn't skip out on giving the time period hopping some explanation, but I just hope other traits of the game aren't overshadowed by it. Speaking of lore, I think another good way you could utilize time travel in FNAF would be in an eventual final game, if that day ever comes, which will only be if the cow gets butchered. This hypothetical, vegan-opposed game could feature a character going all the way back to the origin of the timeline with the objective of returning to the present, being the end of the timeline, without causing more paradoxes than the reds and blues. No, unfortunately Caboose was not the true cause of the JFK assassination, as hilarious as that would be. The true ending would thus clear up any murky details in the lore, finally fully confirming it, allowing MatPat and the game theorists to finally rest. That's another reason why this game will remain nothing but a foolish dream, as Scott will never let them rest, even in retirement. Bro has a hate boner for sleep more than your average insomniac gamer. I'd say that's mostly it for my thoughts regarding Into the Pit, guys, but there are a few smaller things I'd like to touch on quickly. First is the art style. It gives off a more hand-drawn, cartoony vibe, which I think works. It reminds me of the Kindergarten series. It appears all cartoony and happy, only to be more twisted than a game of Bop It. That goes for FNAF as a whole, I guess, but it's certainly more believable that kids would be obsessed with something like this than this. Next is the fact that the game is based on the Fazbear Frights book series. I think this is a great thing, and only opens up more opportunities to bring in other small dev teams in the future. We could get games adapting all the other books as well, in a variety of genres, just like how this one is a puzzle game, thereby expanding the franchise even more, almost taking an anthology approach. This would certainly help with the franchise's longevity, and could open it up to more players who are intimidated by the overwhelming lore. Of course, the games would still connect, and have some references to each other for the hardcore fans. You can't have FNAF without some theorizing. Overall, I believe FNAF to be in good hands with this game, in addition to whatever Steelwool plans to soon unveil, a potential Fortnite collaboration and Roblox game, which would certainly help with attracting Gen Alpha, especially with the twerking Freddy emote, and a potential FNAF racing game. That's right, FNAF Kart is apparently real. I can just picture the potential characters. Freddy, 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 Freddy. What a stacked roster. Mario Kart 9 has nothing on this bitch, unless it's not a full-on console experience, but a mobile one. I know I went on and on about how FNAF needs a new evildoer, but microtransactions are too evil even for FNAF. We don't need another FNAF special delivery on our hands. By far the most exciting thing coming in FNAF's future, though, is FNAF and Funko Fusion. Fuck yeah! It's nice to see a franchise being treated so well during its anniversary time as opposed to a certain other franchise.